First item is approval of the agenda. I'll move it. Second by Nelson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Passes 4-0. Items 2 through 5 constitute a consent agenda of routine action items to be considered by one motion. Items passed unanimously unless a separate vote is requested by a board member. Item 2 is approval of the minutes of the October 15th meeting. Item 3 is approval of the claims. Item 4 from Human Resources includes A, approval of memorandum of personnel transactions, and B, authorization to initiate the hiring process. Item 5 from the county auditors to receive the auditor's quarterly report, and I'll move the consent agenda. Second by Radig. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 4-0. Item 6 from secondary roads includes A for action, approve resolution authorizing the county engineer to close roads for emergencies, maintenance operations, and construction on behalf of County Board of Supervisors in 2024. Welcome our second county engineer, Laura Severs.
Well, yeah, I'm looking at this. All right. Sorry. So this is the resolution for authorizing the county engineer to close any secondary road for the purpose of construction, routine maintenance, or emergencies during 2024. Do you have any questions on that one?
It's fairly standard annual resolution, so I think we're
Move
okay.
it.
I'll second the motion by Radig. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 4-0. Item B is approval of resolution authorizing the county engineer to execute certification of completion of work on federal aid, state aid, and farm to market construction during 2024. I'll second the motion by Radig. Anything to note beyond the annual nature of this? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 4-0. Item C is approval of a contract for the PCC patching 2024 project with Cedar Falls Construction for $56,421.
Well, these were the bids that we took last week, and.
Correct.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and move that.
I'll second the motion by Radig. Anything to note?
Not much difference than what was asked for the warming shelter, and it's gonna fix all the concrete out in the county before the winter.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 4-0. Give me those to sign. Thank you. All right, item 7 from the county sheriff for action is approval to allow retiring percentage deputies and wage plan employees compensation for unused sick leave.
Good evening. Good afternoon, I guess. Before I start, I hit the send button too quick on the attachment. There's just a couple minor word changes. So if I could bring these forward and let you read them.
Okay. Is there anything else you're going to give us?
No, I don't believe so.
I'll move to receive.
Second.
Second by Radig. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The
Opposed say
cha-
nay. Passes 4-0.
The change on it is the one that I had sent that is currently in the backup says any employee, and what it should have said is any percentage deputy or wage plan employee.
Okay,
Because
so sorry to interrupt. Mr. Auditor, could we simply have this replace the attachment? Could we simply have this replace the attachment since it has a correction? Okay. Thank you.
And that correction's made twice in the language.
Taking the documents you're sending. These-
Yep,
oh. Thank you.
they're coming down. Yep. Sorry.
No worries. So, as I think we have discussed over the last year or so, there's some change coming in the sheriff's office in our administrative team, and it was brought to my attention that they don't receive what I would consider similar benefit that the union folks get. In fact, I didn't know they got any, but Michelle was kind enough to hand me a piece of paper just before the meeting started, that currently the percentage deputies and wage plan get up to 15% of their banked hours with a maximum of $3,000 at 25 years of service. What I am proposing is that the percentage deputies and the wage plan employees for the sheriff's office, which there are only 10 total, would get what the current union contract allows the rest of our sheriff's office employees, and that's to be paid back 28% of their accumulated sick leave with a maximum of $5,000. And if at 15 years of service, and if they so choose, they could choose to get 1 year of single coverage health after they retire, which is also afforded to the union employees in the sheriff's office. And I think I put those costs currently, according that I got from Melissa. Let's see here. There she is. The PPO coverage is $8,711.76, and the HMO coverage is $7,951. And I was just doing some quick calculations. The jail wage plan employees, if they banked the 500 hours, that's, if you were paying them at their hourly rate, it's around $25,000. If they were going to get 100% pay, which I know they don't. And if they had the 640, which is their maximum amount that they can bank, that's around 32,000. And then the other percentage deputies on the sworn side would just go up from there. So rationale on the 15 years, I know that was brought up. Michelle brought it up. I talked to Mark briefly. I would say that the stress and the extra commitment that the percentage deputies, the administrators in our office, 15 years is probably worth about 40 years of work in the street. And a normal 20 years of work in the street's probably about 100 years of, maybe some other jobs just as it relates to the stress. And our percentage people are on call and they're salaried. I think last week I read you the deal how two of those guys have been working 60 to 80 hours a week for a couple months trying to get this open. So it's just an effort to me to try and reward the people who have been here some 40 years, to give them what I would consider a very fair and well-deserved benefit on their way out the door.
So personally, I think we should do a comprehensive look at all the deputies in the other departments as well. So I know you got 3 in the auditor's office, and is it 3 or 4? Yes, okay, 4 in yours. And then, of course, because wage plan are all covered under the handbook, which is the 25 years, 15%, maximum 3,000. So I think we should look at it as a amendment to the handbook myself, and maybe bring this back next week or 2 weeks, depending on what kind of time frame it takes to get to an agreement to throw something on the agenda. My personal.
Sure. I don't have a problem with that. I don't know that I guess I'm not sure that a study needs to be done. I would think we could easily just say however many percentage deputies there are in the county, at least raise the 3,000 to 5,000. If you want to The wage plan would be the same thing. We're talking a couple $1,000s in addition to what's already offered. How many total wage plan employees are there in the county roughly? 70 some. That's more than I thought. And percentage deputies, whatever it is. I mean, I guess I have no problem, whatever you guys would need to do. And if I need to come back in a couple weeks and stand shoulder to shoulder with Pat and Tina and whoever else, I don't think any of us are gonna not argue that our employees would be deserving of that. I'll just speak for our office. This would only affect one person in this fiscal year, so we could easily absorb that into our budget. As we start to plan for next year's budget, we're gonna have probably maybe as many as 4 retiring in that fiscal year, and we would just add that as part of our budget planning for next fiscal year. Don't anticipate needing to come and ask you to raise anybody's taxes. That's not what we're about. We don't want to do that. We'll find money somewhere else in our budget to take care of those folks.
Yeah, I agree with Supervisor Raddick. I think let's just take a look to make sure whatever we're going to do, it's right, and make sure, give us maybe an extra week or 2 weeks to look at it, but I think it'd be something to consider, yeah. I'd like a couple more, at least one more week to look at it and just make sure we get it right versus, I think, I understand your rationale, Sheriff, and I
Okay.
think it's a good rationale. I just would like another week to process it and make sure we do it right. And
Is there any difference in the proposal or things we should keep in mind from HR between percentage deputies and wage plan specifically here?
The only difference that I can think of would be a percentage deputy obviously has supervisory roles and those type of responsibilities, and so do the department heads and some of the assistant directors. So I would say that would be a contributing factor.
In our particular case, our wage plan employees have supervisory duties as well, certainly in the jail. They are our administrative team on the jail side of our house.
Is there any thought on, from either of you, I suppose, on the impact to budgets on an ongoing basis going from, let's say, a 25-year threshold to a 15?
Of all the people that I have retiring, it only affects one person. My rationale on my side is I have no plan on doing this, but the next sheriff may bring, or the next auditor, or Pat, or Tina, any elected official could bring someone in as their appointed percentage deputy. And I mean, Pat's been here more than 20 years, but I'm not sure who else that has percentage deputies has served over 20 years in the last, and in this case, the current one is 25 years. So it would allow a newly elected person, if they brought somebody in from the outside, to more easily attain that benefit at retirement in 15 years instead of 20. Basically, you'd have to serve 5 4-year terms in order for somebody that you brought in from the outside to receive that benefit at retirement. And I have no intentions of bringing anybody from the outside. I'm very confident in the staff we have, but it doesn't mean the next sheriff may not. And so I just want to be able to create an environment and an opportunity that next person would have that luxury afforded to them.
So I guess same question for non-appointed deputies. Are there any in that category that would be impacted by, the handbook, if we're talking about the handbook here?
Right. Well, 25 years is a long time to be here to get any kind of payout. So I can think of some, retirees right now that weren't here quite 25 years, maybe 21 years, and they didn't get any payout because they didn't quite hit that threshold. So to me, it's hard to count how many people would say, oh, only 15 years? Well, then I think I'll retire earlier than what I planned. I can't put a number on that.
Would you say, and it's my impression that there's sort of been a shift in employee longevity, I suppose, overall, where that's attaining that level is a little bit more, I don't know if difficult's the word, but less likely as an incentive for retention?
Well, I would say generally just in employment issues lately, there's, and I can't even say it's Gen Z, millennial, or whoever, they do, move jobs a lot more than what used to be done. So, sometimes it's 4 or 5 years, then they move and they step up the ladder somewhere else. So I think it'd probably mainly affect the people that are already here more than new people coming in.
Are there,
I'd be curious to know what the data would show on how many people leave the county between 15 and 25 years. To me, at least our experience in the sheriff's office is when we have turnover, it's early. It's within a few months. Even in the jail, if we can keep them a year or two, they tend to stay. I would assume it's very similar in other parts of the county. So I don't think it would de-incentivize people to stay here over 15 years. Again, in my office, we're talking about a small number of people. The other thing I was curious is, do you know how many of the people that have 15, 20, or 25 years of service, roughly, how many have a minimum of 500 hours of sick time banked? Is it the majority? Is it a few?
I can't guess that.
Yeah, okay. Because again, you have to have both to get the benefit. And I mean, we have employees that have been here for a long time and don't hardly have any sick time banked. But I think when you've risen to a leadership position, you're not one to abuse sick time. You've got, unless you've had an injury or something that would have prevented you, which that's one of our folks' case, a couple injuries or a major injury outside of work, had to use a bunch of sick time. Otherwise, they're folks that got to where they are because they're great, solid employees. And again, it's just a way to reward them at the end for not a lot of cost, really. Especially considering, I thought we were going from 0 to 5,000. We're going from 3 to 5,000. So.
Yeah, but I would say that there isn't a number of hours that have to be in your bank to get the sick payout as a wage plan employee. That's only for the
Okay, I didn't know that either.
insurance payout.
Oh,
I do think that since this would impact all departments, it is appropriate to have it as a public discussion, perhaps in coordination with the handbook if the board wants to wait, rather than piecing together different things like we have now. Whatever the board does here can inform and influence some of those negotiations, and it's probably good for the board to be transparent on what it wants to do to treat people as fairly as possible in this. The 15 years, I do think it makes it more of an attainable goal that would benefit everyone. The 3 versus 5,000, I can see settling on 5,000 since that's where we are for some others. And the one question I have is in lieu of that, paying for into an HRA or the cost of employee-only health insurance, that's not addressed in the handbook, is that correct?
Right, because the wage plan does not have that benefit.
Yeah.
Only the civilian jailer and the deputies right now have that benefit.
Yeah, that would, okay. Any other groups?
Just those
Okay.
currently.
And that's, if we were to write that in, that's something to define as far as, because the costs differ every.
This would also
year.
cover any other contract employees, though, that maybe don't have this spelled out in their contracts as well.
If we change the handbook.
Correct.
Right, because they follow the handbook as well.
Yep. Yeah, that would be a benefit.
Yeah, we would need to probably know that, I think.
Get some numbers, let me know what you need.
So what, we got 7 unions?
6.
6, okay.
76?
6
Six.
unions.
Oh, 6 unions, okay. All right.
Then we only have 2 contracts here, the deputies and the jailers, so
Right.
it'd be
Rest
nice
are
to know
absent.
the other 4, so.
No, 1 CWA.
Well, I'm supportive of what you're trying to do here. I think it makes it an attainable incentive instead of something that's, if by some happenstance I make it to 28 years or whatever it is, or 20 and 25, it just seems like it's an attainable goal. And like you said, for deputies, if you're going to survive through 2 or 3 or 4 sheriffs, then
Don't,
hey.
you don't have to say it like that. But yeah, but you're correct.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it. Whatever we can do to try and get there and cross that finish line, I'd be willing to help. If Melissa needs help crunching numbers or doing anything, let us know. Do you have a time frame that you would like to bring this back to make a decision?
What portions would need to, sorry to call you back up, Melissa? To answer the question, I kind of need to know how extensive.
And the reason I ask is because shortly we're going to be working on budgets. And so I would like to get it into my next budget, knowing what you all are going to do. So sooner rather than later, just from my perspective. I don't know if the other elected officials feel the same way. It'd be nice to know.
Aside from the sick leave conversion and payment section of the handbook, are there other areas that would be affected?
I don't think so. I mean, right now, when we pay anybody that does qualify for this or pay for the year insurance, it comes out of the medical fund. I do believe coming out of the budgets, like the sick leave payout would come out of their budget, would be more beneficial. Everything's getting more expensive, we all know, with
So
medical
do we,
fees.
do we know how much carryover there is in those medical funds? Does each office have that medical fund?
No.
Line item, it's total for the county.
Right.
How much of that carries over?
No, I take that back. You do budget for the medical, how much you pay for each employee comes out of your budget.
Is there typically carryover? Is there some left typically?
It all depends on, well, it all depends on the department, do they have family? Do they have, how many singles? How much?
So we may be able to
the
come
health
back
fund
and
is.
this may not actually cost anything at all. I mean, it does, but the money may already be budgeted.
On that fund, I thought that was one we had to increase the amount going in there because it was low.
We do. Okay, so it is budgeted into your budget. And then twice a month, that is put into the medical fund, from their budget to the medical fund. So anything left over would be really nice to go to the medical fund.
Because I thought we had to add like an extra 400,000 to the medical fund this last budget cycle, if I remember
We
right.
did.
So you're saying by default it comes out of the department? Mm-hmm. And that's the case with these 2 union contracts?
Yes.
And if anything that's left is moved over periodically?
I'm not sure at the end of the year what happens to the medical fund that's budgeted. Do you know, Michelle? In the departments?
The medical fund is its own fund, so just like the general fund that carries over, the medical fund is gonna carry over into the same fund. So that money that's put in there, you may know other sources, but when the employee is paid, the employer portion and the employee portion is taken out of that paycheck. And then those funds are put into the medical fund. So basically, both of those amounts are in there. So in this case where we're talking about paying for something that is not coming out of the employee's paycheck, then that would cover by the employer, the difference there, because I don't think the employee pays anything into that. Is that how it works? If they retire and they assume the single coverage?
No, they
It's-
don't pay anything extra.
But they wouldn't get that $5,000 or that whatever that number is, they wouldn't get that, so that would, indirectly cover it. But I don't know right now that there's a way that money is taken out of the employees and put into the medical fund. So maybe that's something we need to look at, where we take, as if we were doing a sick payout from the department's budget of the up to $5,000 and putting that in the medical fund, which would help supplement that amount to pay for the single coverage, because I don't think that that's taken into consideration at all. The other thing that, in regards to this topic, is during our audit, we actually calculate out sick payouts for everybody. So worst case scenario, if the county didn't exist, what are we gonna pay out? So I can come up with those figures very easily as it sits right now of what we would have had at the end of fiscal year '24. And then we'd have to kind of calculate out to see what the difference is if we use 15 years.
So you're saying you budget as if everyone left?
We don't budget it, it's a liability for the county, so it's
Okay.
included in our financial audit as a liability. I apologize if I said that differently.
Okay.
Yeah,
That makes a lot more sense.
right.
And then the only other thing just to remember, we're talking about 70 wage plan employees total in the county and some percentage deputies, but they're not all, I mean, the good Lord willing, they're not all gonna retire in the same year. And I haven't had one in my entire term. The last percentage deputy to retire was Lieutenant Hertz, and he retired at just before I took office. So unfortunately, we're gonna have a handful in the next couple of years, but typically, there's multiple years where like in our office, I can't speak for the rest of the county, where there wouldn't be any, so.
I think that's a very valid point. I don't think a lot of the department heads can even budget, because any employee that leaves is gonna get a sick payout if they meet those qualifications. It doesn't matter what group you're in, all contracts, all wage plan, all percent deputies. If they meet the set amount of years, they're gonna get a percentage of their sick paid out. And I don't think those department heads even know which employees are going to retire or decide to move on. So it's a very difficult thing for a department to budget. So sometimes that just has to be consumed within the budget somewhere else.
So basically, in 2 weeks, this won't affect departmental budgets. It's gonna affect maybe the medical fund or some other in our budget overall next year. So, but 2 weeks is probably good enough time for us to get this back on the agenda, in my opinion.
I would assume we wouldn't need longer than that.
Do you need me to resubmit something, or will that just get done?
I think it'll come from the board.
Okay.
And Melissa, I'll work with you as well to make sure it gets on. So beyond provisions we've discussed, such as 15 years, $5,000, a couple more questions. The in lieu of costs for health insurance, is 5,000 or 3,000 still representative as far as being somewhat equal to the cost? What is the current picture of?
I think, well, the PPO, if they choose, if they're already on the PPO, is around 8,700, and then the HMO is around 7,900. Now, if an employee chooses to have family coverage during retirement, they would pay the difference. Sometimes taking that HMO will make a lot of difference, monthly. So what they would do is they would sign up for the retiree insurance, and we would put them on the retiree insurance, put that money into an HRA fund, and then they in turn pay Wellmark for that insurance.
Were these costs closer when these two union contracts were signed a few years ago?
We've tried to increase it, slowly, so that's pretty close.
Is there any difference to the county from your perspective on whether they choose one or the other?
Well, HMO, we would definitely get better discounts.
Well, I mean, the insurance versus the payout. Do we want the payout to match as closely as possible or represent that it's discounted because it's cash? Because this will
I
just
think
keep,
if somebody's gonna take the retiree insurance, they're gonna take it. If they're 65, they're not eligible anyway, they're gonna take the cash. Of course, so,
I think my experience is also, if they have a spouse who's working, that they can get on their insurance for less than what it would cost, then they'll take the cash option. So, again, it might be a number that would be good to know over the history of the last maybe 5 years. What percentage take one of the insurances versus what take the cash out? That might be it'd be an indicator of the past. I guess it's not a direct indication of the future, but it might give us an idea.
That'd be easy to find out, just go through the retirees through your department and figure that out.
Does the, between the 15%, paid 15% of accumulated sick leave versus 28%, are those, does the 15 match the 3,000 and the 28 match 5,000? Generally, was the thought process, or is there thought on picking one of those? Does it matter what percentage it is if you have a certain cap?
I would say not many people get to the 3,000, the 15%. It's either 15% or 3,000. It's whatever is,
Well, it's up to.
yeah, maximum 3,000, so.
So my question is, does it, in your opinion, does it matter, is it material if we choose 15 versus 28% of accumulated sick leave to get, if our intent is to get to a certain known payout option for 15 years?
I would say it means a lot to the employee
Yeah,
that's getting that extra money.
well,
It's
but,
not capped at 3,
So can I ask you to do some homework for us?
sure.
So our other 4 contracts, could we know what those say? What is it? So we got attorneys, secondary roads, clerks, custodial?
Sure,
Right.
I do believe, yep, they're between 20 and 25 years with the max of 3,000.
Okay,
Is-
so if we can get those numbers for those 4, oh, she's got it all right already?
That's from Michelle, I didn't bring that, Michelle.
Great
That's
work,
Michelle's
Michelle.
work.
I appreciate that. And then if we could get an idea of what the average accumulated hours might be?
Longevity? Sure.
You mean accumulated sick hours?
Yes. So that we can kind of calculate like an actual percentage risk, actuarially. At least that's what I would like to do.
so this is unlikely to impact budgets as far as amendments. It would just decrease the amounts transferred into the medical fund, and that would be more of a budget consideration annually than,
Right, to the medical fund. Well, look at it this way, if you have somebody that's retiring in 15 years and you're going to backfill that position, they're going to come in at a lower wage. So if it gives somebody a reason to retire,
yeah.
then, a little higher incentive, that would help.
Yep. So this is covered by likely every budget and is unlikely to be a thing to consider during budgeting process. It can happen now.
Just figuring out how to get that budgeted health fund money from the department's budget to the medical fund, once they leave, because then they won't be generating that money every other week.
Okay.
I'll try again.
Thanks for bringing it up.
Thank you, yeah.
you.
Well,
Go ahead.
I'll be back in a couple weeks. Go ahead. Mark.
Matthew, were you saying that we should look at 28% then versus 15?
That was my question, is if
Yeah.
if one versus the other means most people are getting 4,000 instead of 5,000 based on those numbers we're asking for. It'd be nice to know if that's, I don't know if that's the goal of what we're doing here.
So
I think we just,
from an administrative perspective, when people are incentivized to not just willy-nilly use sick time and burn through sick time, it certainly makes it easier for us. One way, I don't even know how we could calculate the amount of overtime spent. I don't know the other elected officials, but let's say we have a couple deputies that take a sick day because they're sick, and we have to backfill 2 deputies. Well, the overtime is more than, over that 20-year span, we've spent way more in overtime than we would spend in the extra $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000 paying them at the end for not using that sick time. So to me, I think in the long run, doing this and incentivizing them, it's going to cost, in the long run, my guess is it costs the county hundreds of thousands of dollars less in the long run, if not even more.
In honor of Dennis, it's a wash.
Yeah, a horse, yeah. No, I think we should try to get to that 20%. It'll be interesting to see the figures. I do like the 15-year better because I do think it creates an incentive to stay. I think it's attainable. That was the word you said. I do think that's attainable. I would like the raise from 3,000 to 5,000. I think that that's a positive thing for the employees. And so I think in 2 weeks, we should be able to get all this down and get you guys an answer before you start planning for your budgets, so.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. And, yeah, it doesn't seem like the financial impact is, I mean, we look at this as one impact, but the impact of having a more efficient staff and less use of sick leave that isn't maybe warranted 100%, or, I mean, we're talking about it being incentivized, so obviously there is a benefit, as you said, to being staffed, and a lot of county offices do provide very critical services or very essential services, so what I'm hearing for HR to work on is 15 years, 5,000, 28%, and see where the questions come up from that and how the handbook can be adjusted accordingly in 2 weeks or even next week if it's available. Any disagreement or other discussion on the board with that?
I think we should probably analyze 20 years as well, and maybe doing a separate, like, appointed deputy at maybe 16, that's 4 terms, I don't know. I think we would want to look at the actual years of service, not just going down to 15 straight for all employees, so.
I'm agreeable to that.
As far as looking at a couple options? Okay. Well, 20 is where the base level is right now across all employees, correct?
It's only 20 on the deputy's contract. It's 25 on the jailers, 25 on the handbook, and I think 25 on all the others.
22 on secondary, okay. Yeah, I'm still leaning towards 15, but I don't mind looking at,
Yep.
the numbers, but I think if we're gonna make a move in the handbook, it's going to inform several different contracts, and I think the overall impact to the county is positive. Any other discussion? Okay. We'll see this back in a week or two. Item 8 is reports on committee meetings.
So I had SEDC, which my term is now technically expired. I don't know if anybody else would like to be appointed, since I will be outgoing in this position. I don't know if you want to draw straws or I'll step back. I also had Community Action Agency, which, again, you guys get their minutes and try to inform everybody on that as much as possible, but it's a lot of transferring funds and looking at state and federal grants. So.
All I had was this ship and no issues, nothing, no concerns, so.
Conservation, Saturday night at Little Sioux Park, they had the trick or treat through the campground. We had every camper spot was sold out by Monday leading up to that, which the weather, was absolutely perfect. The event started at 5. I got there at 4:45, and the car parking was already halfway back from the check-in station to the paved road there where you turn to come into Little Sioux Park, and by the time we left, traffic was cars were parked all the way back there. So It's a huge crowd, which is great. I mean, it's great for the parks. Really showcased the work that we did, talking with campers. They love the bigger and the new spots and amenities that we've had out there. And so we're doing great things, and was happy that everybody was having a fun time. And so that was a neat event. And then the other thing I had was, a little over a year ago, we approved monies to have the tuck pointing done out at the Climbing Hill building. It was supposed to start this spring. The factory that makes the bricks was not in operation until about September. And so they got the bricks, and they are in their second week of working out there. They got about 3 weeks left. I was out there today talking with the guys, and it's really interesting how they know which bricks to replace. You know, some of it they just do the mortar, and some of it they're actually taking, you know, quite a few bricks out. But they've got a big crew. They're trying to get this done before the cold weather sets in. And so they think about another 3 weeks, and they'll have it whipped. But good work going on out there. So thank you.
Item 9, any citizen concerns?
Doyle Turner, 2738 200th Street, Mobile. I've missed several meetings, but I have been watching them online. And I would just like to make one suggestion. You know, there comes times when the board needs to suspend the rules. And I think it would be a good idea if we make a rule to actually say what rules you are suspending. I don't think we want to suspend all rules unless I'm talking. But, you know, I think that went without saying. But anyhow, I just think it would be a good idea if it would make, because there are times that we have to suspend some of these just to make a meeting flow. And I think if we would make it evident exactly what we were doing, I think things would flow better. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizen concerns?
Good afternoon. My name is Tom Kimmel, and my partner and I own a number of farms down on Port Neal Road. And just to give you a brief, just really brief, we own the property from the south end of LG Everest to the from Everest to the I think it's Gravel Road 35. It's where the interchange is coming into to 35. None of that is what I wanted to be here to talk, but I got a call from Mark Nuri last summer, and he informed us that that there was 2.5 acres of land that we didn't own, and we bought it I think it was in '99. So we've owned it for 24 years, and now we hear that we don't own 2.5 acres on the east end, right on Port Neal Road. And so I said, okay, can we work something out? Can we buy it from you, the county? Can we buy it from you? Our tenant farmer is a fellow by the name of Yoakum, Greg Yoakum, who's a big farmer here in the Salix area. And he's been our tenant farmer for a number of years. He's just a great guy. And so can we get you to sell us the property, or could we just lease it from you? No, he says, you can't do that. Okay, he says, we own it and we're keeping it. He's not my best friend right now. And so a little time goes on, and I get a call from Greg, our tenant farmer, and he tells me that the county obliterated the field, the 2.5 acres. We had a nice corn crop on it. And so, geez, that upset me. So I asked him, is the county going to reimburse our farmer? And the answer is no. well, who is going to reimburse it? Well, he doesn't know. Well, guess who reimbursed him? We did, to the tune of, not a lot of money, $975. That's his profit. And so, we let it go at that, and that was it. And I thought, well, there's nothing else I can worry about. Well, by the way, that was in 23, in the middle of 23. So, and he has called, and a number of, he wants to keep the county neat and clean and everything. And so, and I appreciate that. So, I've got 3 pictures here. One is on Port Neal Road looking south. You can see tons of weeds. I'll let you guys have these. This is looking south from Port Neal Road. Here's looking, the next second one, keep them in order if you can. The next one is looking north on Port Neal Road. You'll be able to see it. And the last one is a picture that was taken, all these pictures were taken within the last 2 weeks. This is a picture of your ground next to our corn. And it looks like a jungle, and it's coming into our field. Well, I thought you guys should know about that. Ken and I have been partners for, I think, since 1999, and we've really enjoyed everything we've done down there at Port Neal. But Mark, I think, overstepped his bounds a little bit on this deal. It's just horrible, and it's in our old field. And he just went and cut the field down last year.
So I think I see where you're at on the map here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and I
but-
see,
We
So-
own 4 farms, right
yeah,
together.
well, I see the segment, though, that's between the
Oh,
road
yeah,
and your
yeah.
field there. and-
We never knew it.
Yeah.
We've been farming it all these years and didn't know it. Well, they pointed it out to us. We just said, okay, fine.
Well, it is a significant amount of right-of-way in the area there for the county to have.
I don't know what you're gonna do with it. I mean,
Well, my question, if we had Mark here, I don't think that's where the interchange is planned, but
well, it's not there.
Interchange is
It
south of
comes
that.
into
Yeah, it's south of
35.
that.
It comes into 35, which is we own the property, see.
oh, yeah, I see
yeah,
on the
yeah.
southern side of that, yes.
Yeah. No, it had the
235th, right?
235. I couldn't remember the first number. And all I'm here is just, I think
Well, that's,
we're getting a raw deal on this deal.
Sure.
And all I'm asking for is he clean it up. It's your ground.
well, if we're gonna cut down your crop on it, then we should at least
Yeah,
maintain it.
we couldn't believe that he did that, but he did. Okay, I should tell you, I think Keith is, I feel for you guys sometimes. I spent 9 years on the CID board out at the Dudes, and then I've also served 9 years, and I'm presently still on the Union County Board of Commissioners. And so, I know what you're doing. Anyway, I appreciate you letting me have a chance to talk, and if somebody wanted to call Mark and just explain to him that I was up here.
Yeah, and I would just like to let you know that, it is common practice if farmers encroach into the right of way, enter the ditch right up the road, that we have to go out and shred that. I think the problem here is,
Well, no, that's not the case. Hey, it's farmland.
well, I know, but the county owns that.
Yes.
And so it's not meant for other people to be farmed. But I think the problem is that they've let it grow into a giant weed patch.
Exactly.
Which we have a responsibility to make sure that doesn't happen.
Exactly, and it's
so-
it's terrible.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's encroaching into the corn.
Quite frankly, I think this is something we could bid out in the future, until we decide to use it for actual.
Well, and that's what I'm curious. It is weird that, because it's not part of the right of way, it's just this extra land that we own. So what's the plan with it?
Right, well, I see where its proximity to the interchange.
Yes,
and
oh,
everything
yes.
is important, and we're not gonna just.
You'll be glad you own it.
Yeah,
I mean,
we need to own it.
We thought we did.
We get that a lot.
Yeah. No, but I don't think it'll have anything to do with the interchange. That's farther south.
Well, I'm just saying in general, because it might not necessarily be part of the right-of-way or the road, but it might be a great location for something.
Yeah, it could be a
Oh, I don't
staging,
think
staging
there's- I
area or
don't think
something like
there's
that.
enough room. It's not that, I mean, it's 2 acres. It's,
But either way, I think we should work
yeah,
with you.
and you can't,
know,
like
Look at something
homes, you
that,
can't build any homes. It's all heavy industrial, so.
we got somebody that's gonna be mailing those letters in the future here in this room, and Laura right back here, and she might be somebody good to talk to for you there, Tom, after the meeting, and just kinda, maybe figure out, I think it would make sense to lease it out to you, so it can be
Yeah,
part of the
yeah, we'd be
operation.
glad to
and-
pay a-
And use the ground, so. I
Right.
appreciate you coming and.
Would
thank
you like us to take those photos from
Yeah,
you?
oh, yeah, these are
Yeah,
yours.
yeah. I'd move to receive.
Second.
This is.
All those in favor say aye.
looking south.
Aye.
This
Opposed,
is
say nay.
looking
Passes 4-0.
north, and this is the real culprit.
So we'll just
The land
hand
we
them up
used
to.
to own.
Here, just hand those to the chairman here, and we'll make sure that someone sees them.
Well, we'll make sure Mark Nera is aware. Thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other citizen concerns?
Don't go too far, Tom.
Yeah, Tom, just wait a second.
Talk to her, hey, Tom.
Yeah. You want to wait 1 second? Laura Siebers, Woodbury County Engineer. One of the things that I would really like, and what I've done in the past, is that secondary road problems are solved in the secondary roads office. And so it's hard to solve problems here in this room. I don't have all my paper or all my people. So when citizens come, please encourage them to call our office or visit our office. It's the best way to resolve problems. So, thank you.
Thank you.
So if you want to meet with her afterwards, then just
Any other citizen concerns? Item 10, any board concerns? You are adjourned.